A United Nations study concluded that humans have under a decade to prevent irreversible damage from climate change bound to tarnish our environment on a global scale. As individuals, we can agree that it is vital for corporations to take action toward preventing global climate change. And as a leading electric vehicle and clean energy manufacturer, Tesla is doing just that. As the company continues to grow and innovate, getting more of its electric vehicles on the roads is the best way to widen this positive impact and maintain a strong financial background. Today, we will continue working towards a greener future by discussing Tesla's proposal to construct a new cathode plant and the timeline for this investment from 2020 to 2025. Next, 5-year forecasts for each plant location will be examined, along with the cost savings and return on investment that arise from each potential opportunity over this time period. A SWOT analysis by location will be presented to assess the qualitative factors of the project, followed by the alternative financing options other than long-term debt for the plant's construction. We will finish with our final recommendation on where to build the new cathode plant.
Let's talk about the proposal. To increase efficiency in the battery manufacturing process and reduce the overall production costs of its cars, Tesla has the opportunity to make a capital investment in a new cathode plant. After the recent start of operations of 2 gigafactories in Texas, there are now 2 cities of interest for Tesla's first cathode plant: Austin, Texas, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Regardless of which city is chosen, the timeline for the investment is as follows. Starting on April 1st, 2020, Tesla entered a new 3-year pricing deal with Panasonic in which the company is committed to purchasing 175,000 units of battery cells every year for $13,000 each. The terms of the agreement stipulated that should Panasonic remain Tesla's exclusive supplier, the current price of $11,000 per battery cell will remain the same. The construction of the Austin Gigafactory began later that year in July, an event that was followed by Tesla securing the rights to a 10,000-acre lithium clay deposit in Nevada, with the intention to bring the manufacturing of battery cells in-house. CEO Elon Musk's plans to build a new cathode plant were then announced in September 2020. Now, almost a year later, on July 1st, 2021, the Berlin Gigafactory will begin construction and the business will be taking on a 10-year long-term debt to finance the cathode plant. A $700 million loan will need to be taken out for the Tulsa plant, whereas if Tesla decides to build a plant in Austin, an extra investment in cooling technologies will bring the loan amount up to $800 million. Tesla will begin paying this debt on July 1st, 2022 at a 20% per annum simple interest rate. In September 2021, the construction of the new cathode plant will commence, and in October, the Austin Gigafactory will begin operations. The cathode plant will start operations almost a year after construction begins in August 2022. Finally, as a result of this new investment, Tesla expects to be able to offer a $25,000 electric car model on July 1st, 2023. They also hope to be able to cover the initial investment by December 2025, thanks to the cost savings from the new planning. Now, over to Sarah, where she speaks about forecasts.
The timeline of the Panasonic deal is a key factor that impacts the cost of revenues in the forecasts and the cost savings generated by the plant investment. Assuming that the first purchase of 175,000 battery cells occurs in January 2021, the following schedule details how Tesla would transition from using external cells to in-house cell production. Given that 1 cell is required per car and that the company is expected to sell 231,000 cars in 2021, an additional 56,000 cells will need to be purchased from Panasonic at the reduced price of $11,000 per unit. Starting in 2022, Tesla is able to make up the difference between the volume of cells bought from Panasonic and the volume required to meet expected car sales. For example, rather than buying an extra 79,100 cells from Panasonic in 2022, Tesla will be producing these cells in the new cathode plant for a much lower cost. Once the Panasonic deal ends at the end of 2023, the company will be making all battery cells in the new plant, which will result in significantly lower production costs for direct labor and direct materials. Moving on to the 5-year forecasts, both Austin and Tulsa show extreme potential for financial success as Tesla begins to offer its new $25,000 model alongside its existing automotive sales, with revenues growing to over $57 billion at the end of 5 years. Revenue growth will be equal for both locations based on constant growth percentages, and the total figure includes revenues from existing car models, the new 25K model, and other non-automotive sources. Total cost of revenues consists mainly of direct labor, direct materials, and fixed manufacturing overhead for other costs related to production. Lithium, transportation, battery cell, and other costs all factor into the direct materials cost, which becomes the most significant expense over the forecast period as the volume of cars produced picks up. A spike in cost during 2023 occurs because Tesla is both buying battery cells from Panasonic and making its own cells with the new plant. This dual supply of cells creates two sources of costs. Part of the cost of revenues is also a constant insurance expense to protect against possible weather damage. In Austin, this amounts to $10 million per year. Note that only 5 months' worth of this weather insurance is added for both locations in 2022 since the plant only begins operations in August. Now, we can see positive and increasing gross profit across the board. While sales are increasing, the cost of producing each car is going down thanks to the investment in the new cathode plant, allowing the company to retain more of each dollar of revenue earned. This reduced production cost helps Tesla achieve its goal of offering a lower-priced car model for $25,000. Subtracting further operation expenses gives us the income from operations, to which we add interest and other income and expenses. This value includes annual interest payments that must be made on the long-term debt taken out on July 2021 to finance the initial investment cost. In terms of the provision for income taxes, Tesla's income is taxed at a rate of 21%, and they receive $110 million in tax credits every year. Finally, the investment in the Austin plant shows overall promising results when it comes to net income. The loss in 2021 can likely be attributed to the new Panasonic deal, which is quite expensive, and lower sales during that year. Meanwhile, in the last 5 months of 2022 and onward, Tesla benefits from the dramatic cost savings that come about from the new plant, especially in 2024 when they are no longer buying battery cells from outside suppliers. As you can see, there is an increase in net income of over $4 billion from 2023 to 2024. Taking a look at the forecast for Tulsa, a major difference in the cost of revenues is the slightly higher transportation cost, since there is no nearby gigafactory, and a lower insurance expense of only $7 million compared to Austin's $10 million expense. Nevertheless, growth profits remain similar, ending at over $12 billion by the end of the forecast period. The initial investment required for the Tulsa plant is lower than that required for Austin, which means that the interest payments included as part of interest and other income/expenses will be slightly lower each year. The plant in Tulsa would receive additional tax credits of $500 per new employee hired in 2023 and 2024, thereby reducing the company tax expense for those years. As we saw with Austin, while there is a net loss in 2021, this is quickly made up for in 2022 and onwards for the rest of the forecast period. As you have seen, both forecasts display an overall positive outlook for the company in terms of net income. This demonstrates the company's success with the new car model and cost savings while also creating more opportunities for Tesla. With this net income, the company has the choice of investing it back into the business to finance future research and projects, paying off existing debts, or paying out dividends to shareholders. Overall, this investment enables the company to better generate future returns and meet shareholder expectations. Renlin will now be discussing the cost savings that come about from the new cathode plant.
Tesla benefits from considerable cost savings in 4 areas once it begins to produce its own battery cells in August 2022 at the cathode plant. Labor costs will be reduced by 76%, lithium by 33%, and battery costs by 20% for both facilities. However, the decrease in transportation cost varies based on plant location. The Tulsa plant would experience an 80% reduction. Meanwhile, a plant in Austin would be situated close to the existing Austin Gigafactory, further reducing the transport cost by an additional 5% for a total 85% reduction. This lower transportation cost contributes to the overall lower cost of revenues for that city compared to Tulsa, as seen earlier in the forecasts. This is highlighted in the graph on the left. which shows the total cost of direct labor and direct material categories over the 5-year period under each of the 3 scenarios: no investment, investment Austin, and investment Tulsa. In Austin, the cost for transportation is $3,098 million, much less than Tulsa's cost of $3,359 million. As a result of this difference, the cost savings for Austin are consistently higher every year from 2022 to 2025, as shown in the graph of Austin's cost advantage compared to Tulsa. This chart displays the difference in each year's savings between Austin and Tulsa. From this, it can be seen that the dollar amount of savings increases year over year as well. For example, in 2022, Austin's savings were only $60 million, greater than those for Tulsa. Yet by 2025, a plant in Austin would save an additional $112 million over a plant in Tulsa. With the overall goal of the investment project being reducing production costs and establishing long-term savings, Austin can be said to perform better than Tulsa in this respect. The company will be able to use the funds recuperated from production to make improvements to other business segments and support additional projects. Then we come to the summary of financial analysis. In terms of net income, Austin experienced a 768% growth over the forecasted period, while Tulsa experienced a 758% growth. With there being a 10% difference in net income growth between the 2 locations, it can be said that the profitability of each location is projected to be very similar between 2021 and 2025. Over the next 5 years, Austin is expected to achieve greater cost savings in comparison to Tulsa. Specifically, Austin yields $261 million more in cost savings than Tulsa. Using Tesla's total cost savings over the 5-year timeline and the initial investment cost for each plant location, Austin will achieve a return on investment of 58% at December 31st, 2025. Telsa's return on investment was slightly higher at 66%, partly due to the lower capital financing needed to bring the plant up to operations. Both opportunities offer substantial returns that leave the company in a strong financial and operational position. Nevertheless, the main performance measure for this investment is the plant's ability to save on automotive costs of production. Hence, the difference in ROI should not be the main manufacturer factor considered when deciding both plant locations. Then I'll pass to Andrew and he'll talk about the SWOT analysis.
Whether Austin or Tulsa is chosen to build the cathode plant, it is important to address the qualitative factors associated with either location. Thus, a strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats analysis was conducted on the investment. Starting with Austin's strength, the city boasts a highly educated population, with nearly half of its residents having earned a bachelor's degree or higher. Since Tesla's Gigafactory 5 was built in Austin, Texas, materials transported between the cathode plant and the nearby factory will reduce costs, as well as allow the Texas Gigafactory to manufacture other Tesla products, such as the Tesla Cybertruck and Semi. With this being said, there is also some considerable downsides that come with constructing the cathode plant in Austin. Unfortunately, Austin is held back by the highly variable humidity, causing them to incur a higher insurance rate in comparison to building the plant in Tulsa. Along with this, Tesla must also take the precaution of investing in advanced cooling technology to mitigate the impact of unpredictable temperature. Available opportunities in Austin include a potential joint partnership between Tesla and the University of Texas to hire university co-op students once the plant is operational. This would help Tulsa reduce their hiring and training costs going forward, which aligns with the CEO's Elon Musk's goal of long-term savings. In addition, 900 acres of land exist in the Austin location, while the plant only requires 700 acres. If the plant is successful, the extra land may be used to expand in the plant in the future. Moving on to threats, a cathode plant built in Austin is exposed to various weather conditions within the area, including the damaging winds, lightning, heavy rain, and flash flooding. Furthermore, variable humidity is likely to cause the battery cell damage, and it is not guaranteed that the new cooling technologies will solve the issue immediately. The residents of Austin also prefer local independent businesses with a vocal resistance against projects that threaten the natural and cultural landscape. Production of a cathode plant will gain unfavorable attention from Austin citizens. Taking a look at the city of Tulsa, the major strengths is that a plant in this area would diversify and reduce the company's operating risks in case the Texas Gigafactory 5 were to become non-operational. If any weather-related damages were to occur in Austin, battery cells could still be provided to and produced in Tulsa and distributed to other Gigafactory locations, allowing the company to stay on track with production requirements. As well as the lithium clay deposit in Nevada is closer to Tulsa than Austin, which would contribute to more streamlined logistic process to access the direct materials required for the in-house manufacturing. In terms of financial support, the city of Tulsa also offers Tesla an extra income incentive for all new employees hired to encourage the establishment of flagship companies in the city. Unfortunately, similar to Austin, Tulsa is weakened by the weather conditions that require the plan to pay a high insurance rate. The entire plot of the land in Tulsa would be used to build a cathode plant, meaning there is no opportunity for future expansion projects that the company may want to pursue, nor is there any room for margin of error when constructing the plant. If Tesla were to choose to build a plant in Tulsa, they would have the opportunity of operating in a city with one of the lowest cost of doing business within the country. As a result of this, the company could potentially renovate their factory at a very affordable price. In Tulsa, the business has the opportunity to establish a dominant presence in the region and further emerge as a market leaders in the electric vehicle industry. Therefore, if the competition arises in the future, Tesla will hold a clear competitive advantage due to the brand recognition they would have built in Tulsa. Finally, Tulsa is threatened by frequent thunderstorms and flooding. As Tulsa is an oil-centered economy, Tesla has limited material suppliers within the city in comparison to Austin, where the Texas Gigafactory is just nearby. Now, Amar will discuss the alternative financing options.
There exist two alternate financing options to fund the cathode plant investment. These two methods include equity financing and debt financing. To fund the new cathode plant, Tesla can raise capital through the issuance of shares. A clear advantage to this is that the company would not have to take on any debt obligations to acquire the funding necessary to build the new cathode plant. However, there are also disadvantages to this method of raising capital. This would inevitably reduce the ownership stakes that current shareholders have in the company. In addition, it could potentially result in a drop in the stock's initial market value as a result of share dilution. This would be followed by a rise in the cost of equity, resulting in an inflated weighted average cost of capital. In other words, Tesla would be allocating an unreasonable amount of funds toward raising capital in the first place. Thus, this increase in weighted average cost of capital would imply that the company is bound to incur significant financial risk in their future business operations. Overall, Tesla would have to issue an unideal amount of shares to fully cover their investment costs using this method. In terms of debt financing, there exist possible ways that Tesla can fund the construction of its new cathode plant. As you have already expressed, the company is looking to take on a 10-year long-term loan to finance all investments. In addition to this, we understand that taking on short-term debt is not plausible considering that the lender is skeptical upon Tesla's ability to repay it as a result of past financial performance. As a result, a high interest rate was set on the loan. To mitigate this circumstance, a covenant which outlines the financial metrics that Tesla must maintain over the term of the 10-year debt could be proposed to the lender. Furthermore, the lender would then have the opportunity to negotiate such metrics, such as the company's interest coverage ratio. In this case, the lender would want Tesla's EBIT, or earnings before interest and taxes, to be greater than interest payments on the loan determined by a determined multiple. Since Tesla is confident in achieving its goal of cost reduction, meeting such requirements should not be a significant issue. Also, setting a covenant may instill more confidence in the lender, enabling Tesla to negotiate for a lower interest rate on the debt. In the case that a short-term loan with an associated covenant is not desirable, Tesla can issue corporate bonds. This will allow the company to raise capital from multiple issuers while also retaining ownership. It also eradicates the possibility of share dilution, which is the major downside of equity financing. However, given the historical financial performance of Tesla, the risk associated with these bonds will likely be perceived to be high. Thus, potential lenders may be more inclined to take on slightly more risk to become shareholders instead. In addition, Tesla will be obligated to pay back principal and interest on each of these bonds, which may be costly in the long run. This is especially the case if the cathode plant project experiences any major setbacks, as cost reductions will become delayed.
So where are we on our recommendation? In summary, after analyzing the 5-year forecasts, cost savings, and SWOT analysis, our recommendation is to construct the cathode plant in Austin, Texas. We acknowledge that there are some lost benefits and opportunities in choosing Austin over Tulsa. In particular, Tesla would be exposed to more operational risk related to weather in Austin because of the plant's close proximity to the Austin Gigafactory. Despite this, operating near the Austin Gigafactory allows the cathode plant to more easily produce other Tesla products such as the Tesla Cybertruck or Semi. The city of Tulsa also offers an income tax incentive to newly hired employees. However, the financial statements show that this decrease in income tax provisions is not significant enough to outweigh the cost savings generated by a plant in Austin. A cathode plant in Austin still achieves greater projected cost savings and net earnings every year from 2022 to 2025 compared to a Tulsa facility. Lastly, though Tulsa has a greater return on investment, this is only because the initial investment required for a plant in the city is $100 million lower than that required for Tulsa. In fact, further analysis showed that if both plants required the same initial investment of $800 million, Austin would experience a greater ROI than Tulsa. This is because over 5 years, the cost savings generated by the Austin plant amount to $261 million more than those generated by the Tulsa plant. Hence, though Austin requires a higher initial investment, a relative comparison of ROI suggests that it is worth it in order to achieve the lowest automotive production costs possible. By constructing a plant in Austin, Tesla will experience many other operational and efficiency advantages. Since the plant will be built near the Texas Gigafactory, Tesla can reduce their material transportation costs by 85%. Also, Tesla's joint partnership with the University of Texas co-op program will cut Tesla's hiring and training costs in future years. Above all else, Tesla's goal for building the cathode plant was to provide affordable electric cars to their customers and consider all possible long-term savings. Therefore, by choosing Austin, Tesla is paving the way for a sustainable future. After analyzing alternate methods to finance this investment, we have come to the conclusion that Tesla should negotiate for a covenant on the 10-year long-term debt. Given that the company is confident in its ability to reduce costs over the next 5 years, meeting the terms of this covenant should be attainable. If successful, this proposal will lower the interest rate on the aforementioned debt and alleviate Tesla of the financial burden associated with it. In the case that the lender rejects the covenant, we believe that it is best interest of Tesla to still take on the 10-year long-term debt. This is partly due to the fact that equity financing is unrealistic and comes with considerable added risk. Also, corporate bond issuance is subject to volatility in regard to demand, since the perceived risk associated with this debt is relatively high and investors may prefer to acquire equity at a slightly higher risk instead. With that being said, we would like to thank you for your time today. Tesla certainly continues to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy with its plans to offer the new $25,000 car model and make electric vehicles more accessible and affordable for everyone.